Thank you very much. And thank you for giving us some insights into the Oklahoma Mafia that actually rules all that we do. It's good to get a little sense of that. So yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you, and thanks for being here. As I talked about in my opening statement, your budget proposes to eliminate categorical grants to states, which go toward funding state environmental agencies. The justification provided for the cut is that, quote, EPA's categorical grant programs have become a crutch for the states at the expense of taxpayers, many of whom receive no benefit from these grants. And it also says states and local governments should be capable and empowered to fund their own programs in order to comply with the law. In truth, states carry out more than 90% of the nation's federal environmental programs. So I would say that taxpayers actually receive a tremendous benefit. In fact, states are doing this work because the EPA has delegated the authority to them because it would be too much for federal government to handle. Without federal financial support through these grants, it is reasonable to believe that states may need to return program implementation to the EPA. So if your budget eliminates categorical grants, effectively forcing states to shoulder the full cost of critical environmental programs, how do you plan to handle the fallout when states return these responsibilities to the EPA? With the workforce already stretched thin, how will the agency manage the surge in permitting and enforcement without these partnerships?
Thank you, Ranking Member, for your question. There have been a lot of primacy applications that have been submitted to our agency, including one that I'll be signing off on this afternoon for one state. And I just signed off on West Virginia primacy. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I've signed off on 25 state implementation plans and inherited quite a backlog, but we're working through it as quickly as we possibly can. We want to be able to work with states to be able to hear their feedback, but at the moment, the requests coming in as it relates to cooperative federalism have been coming in from all across the country. We want to be able to grant those primacy applications. At the moment, we don't have any requests to give back primacy, and we're not anticipating them at this particular moment. And as we go through the budget process, maybe you'll hear from someone from your home state talking about how an impact of a particular proposal might change the course of decisions for them to make in the future. But right now, the momentum is for states to grab more primacy, not less.
Yeah, and I understand this is about future budgeting change, but I'm just going to put down a little marker there. I see a deeply troubling shift to the states in this federal budget that we're looking at. Having sat through last night's SNAP cut hearing and talking about Medicaid cuts, much of which will be returned to the states, I know that's a bigger question than just you and your agency, but I think for all of us as appropriators, we're going to see a big shift of cost back to the states. I want to talk to you about one other thing right now. And thank you. I know you've shown interest in the concerns related to PFAS, and that's been something that you dealt with back in your home state when you were a member of Congress, and I just want to ask some questions about that. PFAS continues to be a serious problem for Americans, impacting our water, our land, and our health. In my home state of Maine, we've been leading the way on addressing PFAS contamination and hope to continue to work with the EPA to ensure all Americans are protected from PFAS pollution. The most recent PFAS drinking water standard will go far to protect Americans from PFAS contamination, but there still are challenges to these standards in court, and just yesterday, the agency announced steps to weaken the rule by rescinding the regulation on 4 types of PFAS, developing an exemption framework and delaying compliance. The science is sound, and there's no question that PFAS is harmful to human health, so why is the EPA not fully committed to defending all PFAS rules? Why would the agency consider an exemption to harmful pollutants in our drinking water? And how will the integrity and innovation of research for PFAS be upheld in an agency that is reducing its scientific capacity?
Thank you, Ranking Member. When I served in the House, I was a member of the PFAS task force representing the district with a lot of PFAS issues, voted for the PFAS Action Act. The agency, since over the course of multiple administrations now, have been working on this important issue. 2 things as it relates to yesterday morning's announcement, because it was involving 6 chemicals. As it relates to PFOS and PFOA, the drinking water standard that was set at 4 parts per trillion is staying. There is litigation, as you pointed out. And as a consequence of that litigation, we're reminded how important it is when going through a regulatory process that the agency and agencies must follow the law for how to make a regulation. There was a procedural error with regards to how the agency had set the drinking water standard as it relates to 4 of the chemicals which you referenced. They combined the preliminary regulatory determination with the proposed rule, which means that the EPA skipped a traditional step in the rulemaking process by issuing the proposed drinking water standard at the same time that it proposed the formal decision to regulate PFAS, rather than doing those steps separately. Now, here's the thing for somebody like you who would want to see the agency go after these 4 chemicals. As a result of this process, the drinking water standard might be lower. The number, which is 4 parts per trillion, may end up being 2 at the end of this process. So the public reporting for some in the media that would see our announcement from yesterday morning and say they're rolling back the standards, they're weakening the limit. Hopefully those people are also willing to write a follow-up to their story just to put out accurate information. Now, you talked about, you referenced the exemption, and thank you for referencing it. The way that process had started when I was going through the confirmation process, and I was meeting with members of Congress, there was concern being expressed to me about passive receivers where local drinking water systems would have to hit a particular date. The cost to be able to bring their drinking water system into compliance was going to get passed off to their customers. So individuals, Americans, would have to pay to clean up their own water. And that was something members of Congress were saying that they want the agency to look at and address. And the second thing is that they were speaking up on behalf of local drinking water systems that are concerned about their ability to be able to meet the compliance deadline. We can help with technical assistance. And also, I will say that the agency is receiving a lot of people who are reaching out to us with all sorts of new technologies to clean up this PFAS contamination. So hopefully, as we're going through, the coming months and years, as these local drinking water systems are coming into compliance, that the costs go down, and the costs maybe from November, December of 24 are not as high as when they go back and try to develop a plan in June of 2025.
Well, I certainly hope that we are developing new methods to clean up PFAS because there are so many of these harmful chemicals in there, so ever present in our environment. So I'll certainly stay in touch about that. And let me just ask one last, hopefully little question. Since this is a priority for the agency, I want to ask about 3 PFAS grants that were awarded and worked on in Maine. We just heard last evening that 2 of them have been terminated, and I'd love to get an update on the 3rd one as well. The terminated grants were awarded to the University of Virginia with a subaward to Maine, the Central Aroostook Soil and Water Conservation District, and the other was awarded to the University of Maine, and the 3rd grant was awarded to the Passamaquoddy tribe. All were working on PFAS and their impacts to human health and our food supply is important work, and they're all a top priority. Since these grants are consistent with the EPA's priorities, do you know why they were terminated and what the status is of the Passamaquoddy tribe grant?
Thank you, Ranking Member. I'm familiar with these grants. It's an important program. It's something that's congressionally appropriated. The agency is going through a reorg, so the way that the program and these grants are going to get administered are going to be different going forward. But these are important grants. I look forward to working with you and your team as we're able to continue that good work going forward. And I know that and I appreciate the fact that your office reached out before today's hearing, as opposed to asking about a grant for the first time at a hearing where I might not have the details on me. But as I was talking to the team about the request that you sent in, the feedback that I got is that it was an important program, and as we're able to implement the reorg, the office inside of the agency that's going to be administering it is going to be different, and we're looking forward to being able to move forward from there.
Okay, well, we will stay in close touch about that, and certainly on all of these issues related to PFAS. I know it's not something we're all tackling, but we certainly want to make sure we don't lose any ground here on the enforcement and the research. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield that.
Thank you.